Today, we are walking through latent spatial memory for video world models.
Give me the big picture first. What problem is this paper trying to solve?
The paper is about video world models that generate a scene while the camera moves. The hard part is returning to the same place later without the room, walls, or objects drifting into a new geometry.
So the challenge is not only image quality, it is whether the generated scene remembers its own space, right?
Exactly. Earlier systems often attach a 3D memory as an RGB point cloud. That means the memory stores colored 3D points, then repeatedly renders those points back to pixels and encodes the pixels again for the diffusion model.
What is the limitation of that RGB detour?
It is expensive because rendering on VOICEVOX encoding happen again and again. It is also lossy because the diffusion model works with latent features, but the memory has been squeezed through pixel space before those features are recovered. Mirage changes the memory itself. It stores scene information directly as latent features attached to 3D locations, so the cache speaks the same representation language as the diffusion backbone.
The overview shows a cache, a target camera, and repeated chunks.
Mirage takes the input frame, encodes it into VOICEVOX latent tests, estimates depth in camera parameters, and back projects each latent cell into 3D. Each memory entry keeps a world space point in the latent feature from that cell. The memory definition makes that design explicit. Instead of storing an RGB color at each point, Mirage stores a C-dimensional latent feature at that point.
What do the two symbols in that memory pair stand for?
The point B sub I is the 3D location. The feature F sub I is the latent token stored at that location. This equation matters because it replaces an RGB color cache with a latent cache that the generator can use directly.
Once the cache exists, how does Mirage use it for a new camera view?
For a target camera, Mirage projects the latent memory points onto the target latent grid. If several points land on the same cell, it keeps the frontmost one with C buffering, then reads the stored latent token into that cell. The readout equation defines which memory point fills each target cell and what latent value is returned there. It is the direct alternative to rasterizing an RGB point cloud and encoding it again.
So the output is a latent grid for the requested camera, not a rendered RGB image that must be encoded again.
Right, that is the central efficiency claim. A target view can be conditioned by a single latent resolution projection. So Mirage removes the expensive rasterize and encode loop from the critical path.
The comparison panel shows the RGB path on top and the latent path below. What is the practical difference?
The top path rebuilds conditioning through pixels each time. The bottom path keeps the feature memory compressed and geometric. That reduces memory because the cache lives at latent resolution. And it reduces time because the model no longer performs repeated RGB rendering and encoding.
How does Mirage keep the memory growing as the video moves into new areas?
After each generated chunk, Mirage estimates depth and camera parameters for the new frames, encodes those frames into clean latent tests, and back projects the new latent cells into the persistent cache.
Does it add everything it sees into the long-term cache?
No, the update filters out moving objects in sky regions because their geometry is unreliable for a persistent 3D map. The paper reports that disabling this filter hurts long horizon stability, especially 3D and photometric consistency.
What did the ablation say about latent memory compared with an RGB point cloud?
When the authors replaced the latent cache with an RGB point cloud while keeping the backbone on training recipe unchanged, the average score went down, and both 3D consistency and photometric consistency weakened. The efficiency plot makes the cost difference concrete. Mirage reaches up to 10.57 times faster end-to-end generation and 55 times lower GPU memory use relative to explicit 3D baselines.
What should I look for in the bars besides the headline speedup?
Look at how the cache behaves over rollout chunks. Mirage settles around a small per frame red cost and its cache grows by less than half a MB by byte per chunk, while RGB cache baselines spend far more time in memory as they repeatedly rasterize and encode accumulated points.
Efficiency is clear. What about visual quality when the prompts are outside the training distribution?
The open domain comparison shows outdoor and natural scenes far from the indoor real estate 10K training distribution. Mirage keeps smoother, more 3D consistent rollouts under aggressive camera motion, while RGB point cloud baselines show stretched textures on foundation video generators drift in geometry.
Is there an important limitation viewers should remember?
Yes, because Mirage deliberately excludes moving entities from the persistent memory. It does not maintain the state of dynamic actors across chunks. Scenes dominated by rigid geometry benefit most, while scenes dominated by pervasive motion benefit less.
Then the core claim is that the right place to store 3D memory is the latent space itself.
That is the takeaway. Mirage keeps the 3D cache in latent space, reads it with a direct latent projection, and updates it with static scene content. The result is more efficient long horizon generation with stronger spatial consistency than RGB cache alternatives. That wraps up this paper walkthrough.